Hey sports fans, my name's Bennion. Welcome to episode 2 of the Babbling Bennion, my second podcast. Again, I hope this is proof. This is the second episode that I've done this week. And so, again, this show is going to be a little more sporadic, and it's going to be a lot shorter than Unbiased. Today is Saturday, October 15th, 2022. Just going to say it straight, it was a pretty crappy day for me sports-wise. I will say right now the Yankees game is going. It's bottom of the 7th. Yankees lead 5-3. But college football-wise, it has not gone my way. I'll probably start with Alabama just because I think maybe it's going to take me a little longer. So here's the thing about the Tide that I think is so fascinating to think of. And I know that, again, aside from the year that LSU won the national championship, Alabama has played in the college football playoff every year that it has existed, except for the year, again, that LSU won the national championship. That year, I believe it was LSU and Notre Dame, and then I think Ohio State and Clemson. So I get, and as an Alabama fan, I get the call and demand of success. But when I look at today's game, I say, you just came off a really draining win that took you down to the wire against the Texas A&M Aggies, a team that you've struggled with in the past. And then you had to go play at number 6 Tennessee. The reason I bring this up is because with the way that the SEC is set up, if I understand this correctly, which again, I have a lot of misunderstandings, I apologize with that, is there's the SEC West, the SEC East, the winner of each division meet each other in the SEC championship game. And even though Alabama has a excruciating loss, which I mean, is something I could dive into in a second. I probably will. Maybe I won't, just because it's really simple. So again, if I return to it, I return to it. If not, don't worry about it. It's really simple. It's really not anything worth talking much about. But in regards to Alabama, I look at it and I say their loss to Tennessee came to an SEC opponent that is in the SEC East. So Alabama still has the best record in the SEC West. They're still in a great position to go to the SEC championship game and face probably Georgia. Again, it could be Tennessee for a rematch. But what I just find so fascinating with the way it's setting up is Alabama is one of those teams that we look at and we expect a 40-point win every week. And the reason I get on the Babbling Bennion, by the way, I think I forgot to make mention, this is the Babbling Bennion podcast, episode 2. I think that with Alabama, we expect win after win after win, championship after championship after championship. And like I've said, and especially with the NIL deals that are starting to come into play and where money is starting to really impact college football. I mean, it did before, don't get me wrong, it did before, but now it's really impacting college football. With that being said, it's going to be harder and harder to win games. Like the NFL, anybody can beat anybody. We've seen it. We've seen some major upsets. We've seen some unbelievable games. And so, I just look at the Tide, and I say, as an Alabama fan, the loss was excruciating. The loss was very hard to take. But as I told my brother, I said, that's partially because we don't see Alabama lose very often. And so the reason I got on to start with Alabama is just because I want to put it out there that this loss does not end the season. It doesn't end a national championship hope because of this reason. Alabama is one of those teams that wins when it matters. Last year, they lost at Texas A&M on a game-winning field goal, and they ended up going, and what did they do? They beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and then lost to Georgia in the national championship game in a rematch. But I look at it and I say, are we headed for the same destiny? Is Alabama headed to the SEC championship game where Nick Saban is very successful, where he knows how to adapt and how to prepare his teams. I believe it was 17. 17 penalties for Alabama is a school record in a game. And I'm not blaming the officiating. When I say blaming, what I'm saying is we saw an Alabama team. They were down, if I remember correctly, 28-10 at one point. This is an Alabama team that we don't see very often. And it's one that's sluggish, that doesn't hit, that doesn't tackle, that doesn't focus on the fundamentals. We saw that team today, and that's why I hopped on the Babbling Bennion to express the frustration of a team that really had every opportunity to go and win that game. They were up by a touchdown and still ended up losing this game. Again, not blaming the officiating. They had a pick six that was called, no, not pick six. They had a very important interception that was called back because there was pass interference. You've got to play winning football. And unfortunately for Alabama, it didn't show up today. Again, I wanted to come and vent some frustration, but also put out there as a biased Alabama fan that the season is far from over. They do have some really good tests. They still play Ole Miss. They're still going to play Auburn, a team, again, that comes to play every time they play every season. So they still have some tests for sure. I believe they play Mississippi State next week, who's a ranked team. So it's going to be a test. But Alabama is far from over, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you want to sit here and say, well, Alabama just lost to Tennessee and Georgia's undefeated, week to week, Georgia impressive. Last week, they almost lost to unranked Missouri. Let's calm down the horses. Let's hold our horses, and let's let the season continue. I am going to be interested to see where Alabama drops. They lost the game on the road to number 6, Tennessee. We'll see what happens for Alabama. For the team that we're not used to seeing win after win, for the team that we're used to seeing sluggish and slow and making mistakes, those beloved BYU Cougars. They fell to Arkansas today 52-35 in Provo. And I guess really the only place I'm going to go to end this episode is very simply the fact of my fears. And that is this. Arkansas came into this game at 3-3. Yes, they're in the mighty SEC, the king of college football. Once again, you look at it. Georgia, Alabama were top 5 teams. Tennessee was 6. I believe Kentucky's in the top 25. Mississippi State's in the top 25. I believe that's everybody. I could, obviously, I apologize, I don't have my iPad in front of me. I just kind of like to hop on and just start ranting. So, again, the SEC is the king of football. We all know that. But at 3-3, here's what I fear. BYU loses this game to Arkansas on their home field set by 17, allowing 52 points to a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. BYU heads to the Big 12 next year, and they are looking at ways to win, and they want to establish themselves as a real contender in the Big 12. But I feel like losing by 17 to a middle-of-the-pack SEC team really puts into perspective where you are, because I feel like middle-of-the-pack SEC is really what you're looking at in the Big 12. Again, that's hard to say. I think of Oklahoma State and TCU. I'd probably take both of those teams over Arkansas. But I look and I just say, is that what BYU's going to be running into next season? Are they going to be running a buzzsaw week after week in Big 12 play? My thing that absolutely tortures my dreams is the fact that BYU... Sorry, I almost just knocked over my camera. BYU coming into this game, 2 turnovers all season, 2 turnovers in 6 games. An interception in week 1 over USF, who really was, again, the score didn't matter. Jaron just forced a dumb pass that was intercepted. And then last week, the first play of the game against Notre Dame. 2 turnovers, and what do they do today? They turn the ball over 3 separate times, 3 turnovers in 1 game. And do you want to know what happened? 2 of the 3 turnovers were cashed in for touchdowns by Arkansas. That flipped the game. It changed the game. This was a BYU team that at one point was up 21-17. From being up 21-17, they were then outscored, if my math is correct, 31-14. That's your 17-point difference. Sorry, my math is off because they ended up losing by 17. But again, so they were up 21-17 at one point, ended up losing 52-35. It is beyond frustrating to watch this BYU team continuously week after week. 3 weeks. Actually, sorry, 4. Well, actually, I apologize. I'm like trying to piece together what I wanted to say. Week 1, win over USF. Week 2, you beat Baylor. Very dramatic. Of course, unfortunately, Baylor's not turning out to be the team that we were hoping they would be. The reigning Big 12 champion. They're seeing some struggles. They lost to West Virginia on Thursday. We start 2-0. You lose to Oregon, trade off with wins over Mountain West opponents in Wyoming, who they struggled with, and then Utah State, who it was tied 17-17 at halftime. And then you really got ransacked by Notre Dame. And then, again, BYU led in this game multiple times today. So I can't say they were never in the game, but they got to the point where they just, again, I don't feel you can say they were never in the game, even in the second half, because, again, there were plenty of times where the game was in a single possession game. What I'm getting on the Babbling Bennion for is this. BYU needs to figure out what is required to win on a consistent basis. Because this is a team, now I look at the remainder of their schedule and I say, I think they're the favorite to beat Liberty on the road next week. They come home and play East Carolina. I think they're the favorite to win that game. They go to Boise, and this is a great example. Boise is going to be a team that I would pick BYU to win if they weren't BYU. In the way of BYU always has a kryptonite. Boise State plays them well. It's at Boise State. BYU struggles up on the Smurf turf. And thirdly, it's BYU in the way of ever since starting 2-0, the Cougs have limped with a 2-3 record. Again, 2 of their wins are against Mountain West Conference opponents. Their 3 wins are against 2 Power 5 conference schools. And Notre Dame, who is given that glorious birthright, apparently, of being college football's darling. My point is, their 2 wins were against programs that aren't exactly perennial powers. I'm getting on the Babbling Bennion to kind of babble about the fact that once again, BYU Cougar Nation, I am with you where just straight up, I just need to vent a little bit. I think they'll be fine. Sorry, I just remembered that I totally went sidetracked. Back to the schedule, like I said, I think they'll beat Liberty. I think they'll beat East Carolina. I would pick against them I'm trying to get this in here so you can see, against Boise State for right now. I think then they win Utah Tech, and I think they can win their final game of the season, regular season, at Stanford. Who knows? Stanford's 1-4. They're playing Notre Dame tonight, so I don't have the score right now. Again, you look at it and you say, okay, so you're at 9-4. Sorry, let's see. You go 8-4 going into your bowl game, which again is fine, I guess. But as a venting Cougar fan, just hoping to get more reassurance that the best is yet to come. Thank you for joining the Babbling Bennion podcast. Babbling Bennion podcast. I'm your host, Connor Bennion. Again, these episodes are going to be sporadic, so turn on your subscribe to get notifications. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Love to hear your opinions. Love to hear your thoughts on what you'd like me to talk about. Again, especially with tomorrow night being the slate, obviously, of NFL football games. I may get an episode in tomorrow, maybe not. I don't know. For a more consistent podcast and a little longer one, I'm bringing down my unbiased views. Obviously, Unbiased plays every Tuesday by myself, Connor Bennion. Again, this has been the Babbling Bennion podcast, episode 2, October 15th, 2022. Thank you and have a great night.